A very pleasant afternoon to all the attendees present here. We will now be beginning with the session. Today's session has been organized by CMI's Marathwada Accelerator for Growth and Incubation Council, MAGIC, and Accelerating Growth of New India's Innovation, AGNIi, in collaboration with Maratha Chamber of Commerce, Industry and Agriculture, MACCIA Mumbai, on the topic of clean tech, the innovations that future needs. I would like to thank all the attendees, and I would now request Mr. Ashish Garde, Director at Magic, to please give the welcome remarks and open the session.
Yeah, good afternoon and welcome to you all for joining this special session today, which is being hosted in association with AGNIi and Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce and Industries, Mumbai. Actually, this particular session is planned as part of a virtual exhibition which is right now happening on CII platform, ICONN 2021, wherein Magic has partnered with Tata Technologies for supporting startup ecosystem during the pandemic situation, wherein in-person exhibitions are not possible. So, in this virtual exhibition, all the constituents of startup ecosystem are present under one roof on one digital platform, and this is helping the student-led startups from Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities, especially. So I welcome all the participants of this exhibition also who are on the call. And today we have with us Mr. Amit Manohar from Invest India, who would be sharing his views on clean technology, innovative innovations in New India, as well as the government schemes which are supporting clean tech initiatives. So, in this today's session, I'm sure it will help all those who are present to understand how clean tech is having future in the near future. So, with these opening remarks, I hand over this session to the moderator, and we can move forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. May I now request Ms. Shubhangi Thakur, Innovation Specialist at Agni Mission West India, to please introduce the Agni Mission briefly.
Thank you so much, Laksh, and thank you, sir, for the wonderful context. And really grateful, and it's indeed an honor and pleasure to be here with all our esteemed partners today. And as Laksh said, I work as an innovation specialist at the Agni Mission. And for the ones that probably aren't aware, Agni stands for Accelerating Growth of New India's Innovation. We are one of the 9 missions of Prime Minister's Science, Technology and Innovation Advisory Council. So, in simple terms, if you're a startup who's looking for, necessary scaling support or getting connected to the market, by scaling support, I mean, you want to expand your manufacturing capabilities, or you want to connect with funding partners and need help in your commercialization journey, our program would be really happy to support you in that endeavor. And on the other hand, if you're an industry player who's looking for, innovative solutions across different sectors to be deployed for your businesses, we'd be happy to, support in that as well. And for more details, everybody can just log on to our website, which is www.agni.gov.in. And our team would be really happy to support you in your commercialization journey. And on that note, may I please request, Laksh to kindly take over, and really looking forward to the session today. Over to you, Laksh.
Thank you, Shubhangi. May I now request Mr. Amit Manohar, Senior Manager at Invest India and our esteemed speaker for the session, to please begin with his address.
Thank you, Lakshya. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Shubhangi and Mr. Ashish, for giving us the welcome remarks. I mean, I'm also thankful to Maharashtra Chamber of Commerce for giving me an opportunity to present Invest India. So I lead the renewable energy sector at Invest India, and we will take you through our presentation shortly. I'll just share my screen. Give me a minute. Lux, is it visible, my screen?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Just 1 second. I'm not able to scroll it.
It's scrolling now.
Yeah, so I'll take you through, how we see the green energy revolution in India. As all of you know, last year in 2021 in Glasgow COP26 summit, we committed ourselves to reduce emissions. By 2030, we'll have 50% of non-fossil fuels in the energy mix. Right now, that figure is about 40%. Out of the 400 gigawatts in production, our capacity is about 160 gigawatt right now. We also promise that will become climate positive, will reduce 1 billion tons of carbon by 2030. Right now, our carbon emissions are about 3 million tons per year. So that's where, we would like 3 billion tons, and we would like to, reduce it by 1 billion ton by 2030. Remove emissions, that's a long-term goal that India has taken. By 2070, we'll have zero emissions from the fossil fuels. And these three pillars are on which India takes its journey forward. Right now, our goal is to have 175 gigawatts by 2022. We are talking about renewable energy sources, and by 2030, we are aiming it to be 500 gigawatt. Now, as of January 31, you can see the figures. We have about 50 gigawatts from hydro sources, small and big, 50 from solar, 40 from wind, 10 about 11 gigawatts from biopower, what we call waste to energy, or we can call about biofuels also, about 6.7 gigawatts from nuclear energy. And these are the basic 5 energy sources in the renewable sector that we foresee have a lot of, has a future going ahead. Now, the initiatives that Government of India has taken in the renewable energy sector, as you can see, we have allowed 100% FDI in this sector under the automatic route. This is a great opportunity for all the startups, because once you scale up, you would need funds for expansion, for technology, for R&D, and that's where the FDI helps you. It's 100% allowed in this segment, so that's a very good positive step for all the startups as of now. We also have a development of the Green Energy Corridor project. So now what Green Energy Corridor project does is that it gives you a dedicated power lines, for the renewable energies. Assuming tomorrow we set up a solar farm or a wind farm, your electricity goes through these Green Energy Corridor projects. We also have an introduction of REC and RPO in India. So what is REC is a renewable energy certificates and renewable purchase obligations. So what happens is once you start, producing renewable energy in India, the producers would like to have some kind of guaranteed offtake of the renewable energy, and which is given by the RECs. Government has introduced REC and RPO in India. We also have waiver of interstate transmission system. We call it ISTS. You have to. So for renewable energy or for any energy that goes from one state to another state, you have to pay taxes or you have to pay charges.
We will now
for renewable
be beginning
energy,
with this
these are not there. Great opportunity for all
Today's
the companies
session
coming
has
to
been
renewable
organized by
segment in India. Assured offtake of renewable
Accelerator for
energy
Growth and
PPAs in
Incubation
India.
Council,
So the PPAs are one. When companies sign
growth
their
of New
renewable
India's
energies
innovation
kind
agreement
of offtake in India, and that happens through
with
tendering
Maratha
route.
Chamber
And
of Commerce,
sometimes we
Industry
faced,
and
in the
Agriculture,
past we faced issues, but now
MACCIA
government
Mumbai,
has taken a hard stance on that.
on the
That
topic of
PPAs have to be
Cleantech,
honored going ahead.
the
Now,
innovations
these are
that
utility scale
future
renewables
needs.
I'm talking about. Very short, I'll come to the startup
I would like to
segment
thank
also.
all
But
the attendees.
on the wider
And I would now
scale, these are
request
basic things on
Mr.
which the
Ashish
Government of
Gade,
India has taken a hard stand
Director
on the
at
green
Magic,
energy revolution in
to
India. That
please
this is where we
give
would
the
like to
welcome
focus our
remarks
energies on.
and open the session.
And as as our
Yeah,
Honorable
good
Prime Minister said in
afternoon and
Davos summit in
welcome
January,
to
India's
you
growth in
all
next
for
25
joining
years will be
this
clean, sustainable,
special
and reliable.
session
That's a great
today, which
future,
is
and
being
that's a great vision
hosted
for our
in
nation.
association with AGNIi
Going ahead,
and
to
of Commerce
enable
and
renewable energy in
Industries
India.
Mumbai.
Since at Invest India, we focus on
Actually,
the
it's
pillars of the
planned
renewable
as
energy
part
segment
of
that we see a
a
lot of
virtual
action coming in.
exhibition, which is
We
right right
have
now
new age
happening
policies. We had production linked
on
incentive. We have
CI
which
platform,
focuses on the
ICON,
advanced EV modules.
wherein
We
Magic
also
has
have
partnered
introduced
with
manufacturing
Tata
linked tenders for
Technologies for
manufacturers who come into the nation.
supporting
We
startup
also have
ecosystem
new kind of
during
innovations. I mean,
the
for
pandemic.
this policy,
Person
national hydrogen mission,
exhibitions are
and
not
offshore wind
possible.
farming policy. We'll delve
So,
into
in
these
this
policies
virtual
going ahead. But for the
exhibition,
time being,
all the
I'm just telling
constituents
you
of
brief things
startup
on
ecosystem are
the
present
pillars that we have
under one
built Make
roof
in India on.
on one
Infrastructure. When we talk
digital
about the
platform,
infrastructure, we have green
and
corridor project.
this
We
is
also have
helping
capital infusion for
the
renewable energy projects. We have
student-led
specialized
startups from
agencies where
tier
you
2
will
and
get
tier 3
funding for your
cities,
projects in renewable
especially.
energy. We also have
So
development of
I
smart cities. I mean,
welcome
we
all
envision
the
about one smart
participants
city
of
per state. I mean,
this
going ahead, that's a
exhibition
great,
also
great
who are
step
on
for
the
the renewable
call.
energy segment because
And
the smart cities, they
today
require,
we have
renewable energy as
with
the
us
core mandate.
Mr. Amit
We also
Manohar
have reduced
from
import dependency. I
Invest
mean, we have
India, who would
imposed
be
taxes on the
sharing
solar
his
cells and
views
modules when
on
you
clean
import them. So,
technology,
this will give a good
innovative
fillip to the manufacturing segment in India.
innovations
We
in New
also have an
India, as
approved
well
list
as
of modules
the
manufacturers.
government
I
schemes
mean,
which are supporting
if suppose a company
clean tech
starts manufacturing and they
initiatives.
have to get,
So,
they
in
need
this
to get into the approved list
today's
of
session,
manufacturers for
I'm
for
sure
supplying
it
into
will
various
help
players in India. So
all
that's
those
also
who
a
are
good step for
present
domestic
to
supporting domestic
understand
manufacturers in
how
India. I
clean
mean,
tech
you don't get
is
Chinese players
having
entering into our
future in the near
ecosystem of renewable
future.
energy right now because you need to be in
So,
the approved list
with
of manufacturers. We'll discuss
these
this going
opening
ahead.
remarks,
So I mean,
I
long-term
hand
technology
over this
development and capacity we
session
see for this sector going ahead.
the
I mean,
moderator,
government has
and we
laid down
can move
few
forward.
values
Thank
and
you.
kind of infrastructure
Thank you
pillars
so
on
much,
which the
sir.
renewable energy segment will be
May I
developed.
now request Ms. Shubhangi Thakur,
I will
Innovation
deep dive into the
Specialist at
sectors. I
Agni
mean,
Mission West
this
India,
would be,
to please
the
introduce the
pillars on
Agni
which
Mission
you
briefly.
see it's the subsectors of
Thank you
renewable
so
energy
much,
segment
Laksh,
being
and
developed going
thank
ahead.
you,
So when we talk about the
sir, for
solar segment, I mean, on the
the
right, you
wonderful
can see
context. And
these are the solar
really
parks in
grateful.
India. I mean,
And,
each state has,
it's indeed an
given,
honor
has
and
been given
pleasure
a
to be
mandate
here
to
with
develop a
all our
solar park.
esteemed
But you can see,
partners
a lot of
today.
states have,
And as Laksh
multiple
said,
solar
I
parks in
work
that. I mean, so our
as an
vision by
innovation
2030 is to have
specialist at
280
the Agni
gigawatts of
mission.
solar energy. Right now,
And
it's
for the
about
ones
50
that
gigawatts.
probably
So you
aren't
can see
aware,
that's about
Agni stands
600%
for
growth in that,
Accelerating
just in the
Growth
solar
of New
segment right
India's
now.
Innovation.
We also have
We
about
are one
we
of
have
the 9
50 solar
missions
parks that
of
need to be
Prime
developed in
Minister's
India. We
Science,
also have a
Technology
manufacturing
and
capacity of
Innovation
30
Advisory
gigawatt
Council.
annually. I mean, that's a
So,
huge number right now. We just have
in
about 3 to
simple
4
terms, if you're a
gigawatts of manufacturing
startup who's
capacity.
looking for,
Good chance for startups to get into the
necessary
solar
scaling
segment. I mean, this
support
is
or
one of
getting
the key
connected to the
sectors that
market,
we see will develop,
by
and
scaling
will
support, I
have
mean,
most of
you want to
electricity
expand
needs
your
going ahead.
manufacturing capabilities, or
30%
you
of
want to connect with funding
India's total
partners
electricity
and
demand will
help,
be driven by the
need
solar
help in your
segment itself.
commercialization journey.
We have a
Our
production linked incentive
program would
about
be really
3.2
happy to
billion. I
support
know
you
it's
in
for
that
the
endeavor.
bigger
And
players,
on the other
but
hand, if you're an
the
industry player
basic
who's looking
criteria for
for,
having the PLI
innovative
scheme, production
solutions
linked incentive
across
scheme,
different
was that it will
sectors
develop
to
the
be
small and the
deployed for your
startup segment
businesses,
also in India. I mean,
we'd
as
be
the
happy
big player
to,
gets into
support in
manufacturing,
that as
they
well.
will need
And for more
parts and
details,
various components
everybody
that
can
go
just
into
log on
development
to
of
our
solar
website,
segment. So
which
that's a
is
good opportunity for startups to get into the
www.agni
solar
with a
segment
double
right now. Now,
I.gov.in.
what we call Solar
And
Energy
our team
Corporation
would
of
be
India
really
is a
happy to
dedicated
support you in your commercialization journey.
NBFC for the solar
And on
energy
that
segment
note,
in India. Now,
may I
a lot of
please
banks do not
request,
understand the funding mechanism of
Laksh to
these
kindly take
renewable energy
over, and
projects. That's why Solar Energy
really
Corporation of
looking
India
forward to the
was,
session today.
envisioned in
Over to
about
you, Laksh.
1960s to
Thank you, Shubhangi.
understand the sector's
May I now
needs and challenges and
request
fund
Mr.
the
Amit
projects
Manohar,
accordingly. So, if any of the
Senior
startups are
Manager
looking
at
for
Invest
funding,
India
they should
and our esteemed
try
speaker for the
to
session,
take it from SECI
to
because they
please begin
understand
with his
the project
address.
costs and how
Thank you,
the
Laksh.
project will
Thank
be
you,
taken
everyone.
up in the next
Thank you,
few years.
Shubhangi and
So
Mr.
we'll
Ashish,
have
for
an
giving
easy
us
access
the
to capital
welcome
over there.
remarks. I mean,
Now, the
I'm
key
also thankful
investors
to
in the
Maharashtra
sectors, I
Chamber
mean,
of
as you all know,
Commerce
Renew was a
for
startup a
giving me
few
an
years
opportunity to
back, but
present
now it's one of
Invest
the
India.
champion stories of
So
our
I
solar energy sector in India.
lead
Zero
the
Power was
renewable
also a
energy
startup a few years
sector at
back. Now
Invest
it's a
India, and
champion
we will take you through
in the
our
sector.
presentation
Acme,
shortly. I'll
Tata
just
Power,
share my
Solar,
screen. Give me a minute.
Adani, First Solar, and Wari. These are the other investors in the sector. But most of them started as a startup a few years back. Similarly, on the wind, as you can see, the wind power in states in India, I mean, you can see it's on the western coast of India. I mean, that's where we see a lot of potential. I mean, as you can see, Rajasthan has about 4.3 gigawatts
Laksh, is it
potential.
visible, my screen?
Gujarat, 8.7 gigawatts. gigawatts Maharashtra,
Yes, sir.
5
It is.
gigawatts Karnataka,
Just
about
one
9
second, I'm not
gigawatts.
able to
I
scroll
mean,
it.
these are the major states that we very
It's scrolling
foresee
now.
good wind energy potential.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
you
I'll
can
take you
set
through,
up
I mean, how
either
we
a
see the green
manufacturing
energy
unit
revolution in
or,
India. I mean, as all of you know, I mean, last
you
year,
have access to capital
2021,
wind farming
in Glasgow
wind
COP26
farm
summit, I
also.
mean, we
committed ourselves to reduce emissions. 140 gigawatts project by 2030. I mean, we'll have 50% of non-fossil
Now this will
fuels in
contribute to
energy
about
mix.
17% of
Right
India's
now,
total
that figure is
electricity
about
demand by
40%.
2030.
I
We
mean,
have an
out of
annual
the
manufacturing
400
capacity of 10
gigawatts in
gigawatts, and
production,
most
our
interestingly,
capacity is about
we have the
160
lowest cost
gigawatt
per
right now.
megawatt of
And we
wind turbine in the
also
world. That means that when you
promise
manufacture
that
a
will
wind
become
turbine in
climate
the world, I
positive, will
mean,
reduce 1 billion
we're the
tons of
cheapest in
carbon
the
by
world, about 0.9
2030. Right now,
million
our carbon emissions are about
dollars per
3,
megawatt.
I
So
mean,
that's where
3
we as in
tons,
India
about
have
3
been able to
million
attract
tons
a lot
per
of
year. I
great
mean, so
players in
that's where,
India.
we would
Vestas is
like 3
already
billion
there.
tons, and
Suzlon
we
is
would
there.
like to,
Siemens
reduce
Gamesa
it
is
by
there.
1 billion
Inox
ton
is
by
there. These
2030.
companies are doing great. I
Remove
mean,
emissions. I mean,
these
that's a
companies
long-term
chose
goal
India
that
over
India
all
has
the other
taken. I mean,
countries
by
in India,
especially in the South Asian part, Vietnam, Thailand. I mean, they chose India because we give them the lowest, cost to manufacture wind turbines in India. We also have two dedicated policies for wind energy in India: National Wind Solar Hybrid Policy. I mean, this is one great policy. I mean, where you can combine wind and solar hybrid, because I mean, when you see the renewable power in India, I mean, daytime you can take the energy from solar, and nighttime you can take it from wind. I mean, that's where this policy will help you to set up wind and solar farm in India. We have an offshore wind energy policy coming up. I mean, very soon we'll be able to set up wind farms on the ocean floors. I mean, that's where that's a huge opportunity for startups to tap into. It's still in developmental phase, the whole technology. I mean, if as a startup you have a great idea and able to tap into the funding, I mean, that's a great area to enter right now. Similarly, like SECI, what we envision for solar, we have wind. I mean, we have IREDA, what we call Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency. This is a dedicated government financing agency for the sector. I mean, this encompasses wind also. I mean, once again, these people understand your needs and the long-term project costs and finances. They'll be able to help you with the financing part of your project. Going ahead, we'll talk about the green hydrogen. This has been the buzzword this year. I mean, a few days back, National Hydrogen Mission Policy was also launched. So now what we see going ahead is that initially green hydrogen will be taken up by the industrial clusters for hydrogen. I mean, we are looking at hard to abate sectors that will take up hydrogen going ahead. Not much into the consumer side, but more on the industrial side. And that's where you see on the right hand side the maps. I mean, which are the key industrial clusters where we see that hydrogen will be taken up. So it will be refineries and petrochemicals. They need hydrogen for desulfurization of your crude oil. You need fertilizers. I mean, we see a lot of uptake of green hydrogen in the ammonia sectors. Iron and steel also. So for those of you who I mean, it's used in the direct reduction chemical reaction. That's where hydrogen will be used. I mean, we see a great opportunity for this, and as a startup you should get into the R&D, because probably next 10 years or a decade or so, hydrogen is one key area where we see a lot of focus coming in and a lot of energy demands being met. I mean, as we all know, I mean, recently 2 or 3 key companies in India have also committed a good amount of funding for this sector. I mean, we see about 5 million tons hydrogen production capacity by 2030. Right now, I mean, we do not have green hydrogen production capacity in India. 80% of India's hydrogen is projected to be green by 2050. I mean, we envision about 30 million tons to be produced by 2050, and out of which 80% would be green hydrogen. Investments worth about $50 billion is required by 2050 in this particular sector. I mean, most of the European countries have chosen hydrogen as their fuel going ahead. I mean, they're moving away from the oil and gas sector, and they're moving to the hydrogen sector. As most of you are following the Ukraine crisis, it's the energy geopolitics that's at the core. So we see a lot of investments coming to this particular segment. As I discussed earlier, we have one hydrogen policy which has been launched. I mean, and it envisions good amount of focus on hydrogen transmission, hydrogen storage, land for hydrogen. I mean, of course, we'll get more details as we move ahead. But for startups, it's a great place to enter right now. Of course, you may not be able to enter into the fertilizers, refineries, and petrochemicals. But as a startup, you should focus on the R&D part. I mean, where you can tap into the supply chain. I mean, assuming you need the pipes to distribute hydrogen, what kind of pipes are required, the codes and standards will vary, because it's not like we have to transport natural gas, we have to transport hydrogen. So what kind of pipes are required? What kind of connectors are required? If you get into manufacturing, those also, that will be great opportunity for startups. Once again, Indian Renewable Energy Development Agency will finance you projects in green hydrogen also. That's a great opportunity for the startups to go and knock on the doors of IRIDA and understand what kind of financing initiatives have are they interested in right now. Key investors in the sector, as we all know, it's the big conglomerates that are entering. Jindal Steel, NTPC, IOCL, GAIL, Tata Motors, Adani. These people have committed or are getting into the green hydrogen space. On the transmission side, this is also one great opportunity for startups, because we have recently launched the National Smart Grid missions. We have told that we'll be taking up smart meters at the customer level. That's where we feel that if the startups are able to get into the smart on the transmission side, this is also one great opportunity for startups, because we have recently launched the national smart grid going ahead in next. We have told that 5 or 6 year would want to have all the meters are installed at that's where we feel that smart meters, and that's a great opportunity for a startup to tap into. Green energy corridor, as we all know, I've discussed this before. We are looking at renewable energy to be passing through a dedicated corridors. Phase 1 has already been sanctioned. Phase 2 is under sanction. We are seeing a good amount of investments coming to the green energy corridor. Asset monetization is also there. InvITs are there. If you're a mature company, you can get get funding from InvIT routes also. Cross-border transmission is also a great opportunity once if you're on the developer side or if you're from the power generating side. Now, as a startup, what you should look into is the B2B partnerships, where you are able to get into some kind of component. It could be a small component or it could be software kind of thing for the bigger players. If it's a good opportunity for you to enter, because most of these things are still being developed or still are at the very nascent stage. I see this as a very infant stage, the whole transmission sector also. We do not have smart meters enough to cater to the demands of the whole of the nations as of now. So it's a good opportunity for startups to get into that space also. Now, when you talk about the Cleantech, this is where the whole webinar is focused on. This will catalyze new avenues for growth in India. We have shortlisted 4 to 5 segments where we see a good amount of uptake of Cleantech in India. The 5 areas where we see are agriculture, power grid, hydrogen, batteries, and carbon capture. All of them are at a very nascent stage. For agriculture, when we talk about it, biofuels, you can generate energy from waste. That's a good idea for a startup. To get into the get energy from biofuels. Artificial meat is one area where we see a good amount of opportunity being there. If you're able to get into some kind of meat alternative, something which reduces the carbon footprint in the whole ecosystem, that's also a great avenue. Zero emissions farming, this is where we see that a lot of current energy consumption is done through fossil fuels. Oil and gas based thing. If you are able to capture into the solar pumps or solar farming methods, that's a great opportunity for startups to get into agriculture. Agriculture is the backbone of the nation, and if you are able to get some kind of solution for the agriculture sector, that's a great win for you. Waste to energy, we have always discussed. There's a good amount of waste that go into husks and those things. And if you're able to capture that also, that's a great thing, because right now people who are producing energy from waste, their energy is being fed into the grid right now. So that's also a great opportunity for startups to get into it. And talk about the power grid, we've also already discussed about the smart meters. Good opportunity for startups to get into the consumer side of the business. Smart grid software. Now we have 5 dispatch centers in India. When we talk about the grid stability and renewable energy offtake. So now these dispatch centers need software mechanism to distribute renewable energy and with the conventional energy segment. So that's where if you are into a software who is into software development, you can get into that also. High efficiency materials is required for transmission right now. Our transmission losses were about 25% a few years back. Now it's come to about double digits, about 10 to 12%. So that's where we see a lot of synergies coming into the power grid. If you're able to manufacture capacitors, resistors, which are required for transmission, high efficiency materials, that will be great opportunity for you to enter the power grid segment. We're also talking about base load storage. I mean, what are the solutions for base load storage? Right now, we know that diesel is the base load. Diesel or a power generation is the base load. I mean, once we switch to renewable energy going ahead, we would need some kind of assured power producing. I mean, that's where the base load storage will come. It could be either from the hydrogen or it could be from the battery as a fuel. I mean, so that's where you will need to focus on what could be the base load for us going ahead. Now, on the hydrogen segment, now the crux of hydrogen generation is in the electrolyzer. When we talk about the green and hydrogen, we do not have any electrolyzer manufacturing capacity in India right now. I mean, one or two companies are doing great. I mean, in this segment, electrolyzer manufacturing, but going ahead, we would need a good amount of manufacturing of electrolyzer in the country. So, as a startup, it's a good area for you to enter. Steel and fertilizer fuel cells also you will use green hydrogen. So if you have some innovative ways to get into steel and fertilizer, I mean, where they can use the green hydrogen, I mean, that's also a great idea for fuel cell. Now hydrogen will be used as a fuel cell going ahead. That's where in the fuel cell will be used as a base load storage. So if you have a good innovative idea to get into the fuel cell manufacturing or fuel cell manufacturing technology software in India, I mean, that's also will help you. For infrastructure hydrogen, I mean, how will hydrogen be distributed, how will it be stored, so those kind of things. I mean, how will hydrogen be stored in a tanks? That's also a good opportunity for startups in the hydrogen segment. Now when we talk about the battery ecosystem in India, I mean, most of you know about the battery segment. It's used in the electric vehicles ecosystem in India. That's a good starting point for you. You can get into the charging stations point, or you can get in the new age batteries. Now we're talking about batteries being made out of carbon and most other things. I mean, we are moving ahead away from lithium to carbon and as anode. So those kind of, if you have innovative solution that will help you also going ahead. Manufacturing of batteries in India is also quite in a nascent stage. That's a great opportunity for startups in India. Now, what is carbon capture? I mean, that's a question that I mean, we should ask. I mean, it's a thing that where you're able to capture carbon directly from the air. I mean, you don't need to actually get into the renewable segment. I mean, if you're able to capture carbon directly from the air, I mean, that's a great technology. I mean, right now the cost to capture carbon from air is quite high. It's about $150 to $200 per kg. I mean, with the right push and innovation, I guess this cost will come down, and this will help us to actually reduce the carbon footprint of our manufacturing sector in India. So that's one great opportunity for startups to get into it. Or if you can make a carbon-based concrete in India, I mean, most of the companies, cement companies in globally, I mean, they are moving to making concrete out of carbon. Blue hydrogen is another area where you can enter. I mean, through direct carbon capture. I mean, most of it revolves around carbon capture heavy industries. So you have a great, uh, space to enter into this. I mean, carbon capture is one area where we see a lot of opportunities coming ahead. That's all from my side. Now, I guess my colleagues Shubhangi and Laksh must have told you about what Invest India is, but this is where we fit into the bigger picture. I mean, we help all the startups. I mean, we have Startup India. We have, for the innovation side, we have AGNIi. But as a startup, Invest India, we help you with the government, with the industry. We help you with the awareness, business advisory, strategy, and implementation. So, I mean, feel free to reach out to us. I mean, we are always there to help you. Our team, Startup India, AGNIi, and West India Energy team will be always there to help you. Do drop in a mail to us. We will do our best to help you. That's all from my side. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Laksh. Over to you.
Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful presentation. We now open the floor for questions. So you can put your questions in the chat box and I'll relay the same to sir. Right. Do we have any questions?
Laksh, if I may, I'd request all the participants, I think you can also unmute yourself or maybe just raise your hand and directly ask the question in case typing it is going to take longer. So please feel free to unmute and ask any questions from Mr. Amit.
All right. We have the first question from Abhay S. Pundela. As I'm a startup of manufacturing of CNG gas, did I get help from Invest India? So Amit, that's the first question from Mr. Abhay P. S. Pundela.
Yeah, Laksh. I mean, so as a startup, I mean, our startup India team will be able to help you more on that part. But of course, I mean, the support that you need are the policy framework. I mean, we'll be able to help you with that. I mean, when you are getting the CNG basis, I mean, you really need to get some licenses for its distribution, storage, and transmission also. So that will, I mean, require a fair amount of government permissions. I mean, our team will be there to help you. I mean, that's for sure. So, I mean, yeah, that's all. I mean, we'll help you in the starting up, and then once you're fairly established, I mean, I guess, I mean, not much help is required then. There's a second question. I mean, Laksh, I'll take the questions, not an issue. And there's a second question from Mr. Joel Fernandez on the offshore wind policy. So, Mr. Joel, I mean, offshore wind policy, LIDAR, I mean, there's the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, which is the nodal point for offshore wind policy, has started the LIDAR mapping of the seabed surfaces. And they are going to identify which are the areas where we can have particularly, offshore wind farms being set up. And I guess it'll take about a few more months for them to come up with the identified areas where you can set up wind farming policies. Of course, be in touch with us. I mean, our ID is energy@investindia.org.in. I mean, we'll be able to help you more when more clarity is there from the MNRE. But that said, I mean, it's one area where Ministry of New and Renewable Energy has given a lot of focus on this segment. On the collaboration part, Mr. Joel, I think, I mean, once the wind farming policy is there and more clarity is there from the ministry, I guess we'll start having interactions and roundtables with the proposed companies, and we'll probably call everybody from those, companies in that roundtable to help them more.
So we have another question from Ms. Kanika Verma, who has raised her hand. Would you like to take that first?
I guess Kanika is from my team. I mean, she's there. So, I mean, she'll be able to add a few points. I mean, I'm assuming.
Sure. Oh, all right. Sure.
So there's one question from Mr. Chandrakant Seth from Agam Financial. We are interested to associate with companies in clean tech for supporting marketing. How can we connect? So the best way, Mr. Chandrakant, to do this would be to get in touch with the CII or industry bodies. I mean, they'll be able to help you for the marketing of the services and segments. We at Invest India do not get into that business to business deals, because that's where, as a government body, our hands are a little bit tied up to, prefer one company over another. But we are happy to help you in to connect with the industry bodies in the solar, on the wind. Do drop us a mail. We'll be able to help you in connecting with these industry bodies. There's a question from Mr. Anil from Surya Logics. How can Invest India support any growth startup? I mean, hi Surya. I mean, we have a Startup India based at Invest India. I mean, my colleague Laksh will give you their coordinates, and they'll be able to help you with how do you incorporate company, how do you start a particular a company in India, and if you can get DPI recognition, that will be great for you to raise finances going ahead. So I'm quite sure they'll be able to help you in more detail. But if you really need any policy related help or license based help, I mean, you can always reach out to us. We'll be able to help you in a better way on those things. There's one
Uh,
question from Mr. Kundan. How does this program helps to students who are willing to begin the startup at an initial stage? Kundan, I mean, for the very basic startup, what we envision is that, you can get into the R&D side. I mean, if you're able to give some kind of solutioning to the bigger companies, I mean, if you can help them in that phase, research and development, that'll be great for you. I mean, who are the students as of now. I mean, going ahead, you can become part of one of the incubators that's uh, under Startup India, or Agni can also help you commercialize those solutions that are still at a very MPV stage. So those kind of things, I'm quite sure your work will probably fall into one or two of these buckets. Either the Startup India or the Agni mandate. I mean, probably you should start from there. So, I mean, we'll be able to help you more once you are a little bit more, your questions more crystallized going ahead, that, what exactly are you looking at, which sectors, it's wind, solar, or hydrogen. So, I mean, you'll get more, clarity in your thoughts also when you go ahead on this thing.
Hi, Amit. Sorry, I just wanted to actually come in, and I was not able to unmute myself earlier, but just wanted to also add a little bit on the offshore um, wind question. As Amit was mentioning, the LIDAR studies have already started, and the Global Wind Energy Council, supported by the European Union, is assisting India in development of offshore wind at this point of time. And there was a project which was the project was implemented in December 2013 to about March 2018, wherein the two project sites that were finalized were Gujarat and Tamil Nadu. So all of that is in process, and all of the reports from the assessments have been put up on MNRE's website. And you please feel free to check those out, because that gives a lot of information on the feasibility report and whatever they found out on the wind assessment. And of course, the implementing agency at this point of time for MNRE for offshore wind is NIWE, which is the National Institute of Wind Energy. And I think after that also, there were a couple more projects that were supported, like 4P, and then there were a couple more assessments that were done. And all of those reports and the information that was captured has been put on MNRE's website and is free to use for public assessment. So yeah, I just wanted to add that as well. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you, Kanika. That's very helpful. I'm quite sure Mr. Joel would have got his answer, but feel free, Mr. Joel, to reach out to us. I mean, you have our email IDs. I mean, we can connect offline also. Now, there's a question from Mr. BK Soni. We propose to launch a mobile app on 18th March, Global Recycling Day, for reverse logistic for collection of end of life electrical, electronic, and lithium-ion batteries from the end users. I mean, he wants to understand what are the support that he can expect in the segment. So, Mr. Soni, I guess we have launched a national single window portal. I mean, Laksh will be able to share that with you. So now that national single window will help you, getting in all the clearances for this particular thing. I mean, you might need some clearance at state level. I mean, it could be a commercial license, or it could be, a simple municipality license. I mean, those things will be taken care by this national single window system. I mean, we wish you all the best in this endeavor, and I'm quite sure, I mean, our national single window will be able to help you more in the licenses part. I think that's all that there are questions over here. Laksh.
Right, sir. So I think we have one more question from Mr. Abhishek Saxena.
Yeah, are there any grants for building prototypes for farm energy to energy systems, such as conversion to renewable coal? I mean, Abhishek, I mean, I do not have much idea on, if you are getting any grants for building prototypes in India, because government grants are for, utility scales, I would say. I mean, if I have to be very clear, I mean, prototype building is at a very startup phase. So I'm assuming that Startup India, if they have any, funds for prototyping, they might be able to help you more. But when we look at the ministry side, they are more into, funding the mature stage of companies.
We have a question from Mr. Datta Chaube from Priyanka Gher Industries, OPC Private Limited. So, I would like to answer that.
Yeah, I mean, once again, the same thing, Mr. Datta. I mean, what we see is that you can send us a request. I mean, we'll connect you with the industry bodies. We as investors do not get into the B2B marketing because it's not under our mandate to connect one business with another business, and because we do have our certain restrictions over there as a government body. But we'll be happy to help you in connecting with the industry bodies that are in this particular sector.
Do we have any other questions? I think we can wait for a few seconds. If there are any other questions, if anyone wants to ask any other question, now would be a good time.
I mean, it's not an issue. See, Lakshya, the thing is, this sector is very new, and I'm assuming a lot of players or a lot of startups are also, learning more about this as they go forward. So they have our email ID. I mean, they can always reach out to us through the mail. I mean, they can take their time, and I wish all the participants all the best. Going ahead. I mean, it's a good time to enter into renewable energy space in India right now because a lot of focus is coming. I mean, we did not discuss about the budget announcements. I mean, there a lot of focus has been given into renewable energy segment in the budget also. So it's a good time for all of you to enter into this segment. And if you have any questions, anything that you would like to discuss, your business plan, I mean, you can always send us a mail. We'll go through it. I mean, we'll give you the best guidance, whatever is possible. And all the best. I mean, that's all I can say. Thank you, Laksh.
Thank you so much. I think that address was really enlightening, and we got to learn so much from that. And the questions were also great quality. So feel free to reach out on the email addresses. And if you need any help, you can reach out on the email addresses of Invest India or AGNIi and TMIH otherwise. So moving ahead, I would now like to invite Mr. Ashish Gade to please give the closing remarks for this wonderful session.
Yeah, thank you, Laksh, for all the support and help extended for scheduling this important session. I must thank the entire team of AGNIi for supporting us time to time and helping us in communicating and conveying important areas in which the startups can look for opportunities. And I am sure today's session was very crisp but very useful. I already have received a couple of requests for sharing the PPT. I would highly appreciate if this PPT is made available to us so that we can share it with all those who are interested in exploring various sectors and various